Hey, welcome back. We are restarting on the main stage, and we're also starting our tracks as well. So just a reminder, we do have 3 track sessions running concurrently with our main stage here. If you are planning, actually have a note, if you're planning to attend the Atkins Realis workshop on AI adoption, making the right decisions for your organization, if you had that on your to-do list, it's starting now. You're in the wrong place. So go to track 3 if that was what you wanted to do. I have a quick announcement before we jump into our next session, which is a panel session, and it's to do with any ladies we have in the room. Our partners at Women in AI will be taking a group photo on the main stage around the lunch break tomorrow. I think it's just at the start of the lunch break tomorrow. So they would like to extend an invite to all ladies, women in AI, who'd like to take part in that photograph opportunity. So that's tomorrow on this stage here, just before we go to lunch. But without further ado, as I say, here on the main stage, we are having a panel discussion, and the title is Maximizing the AI Opportunity, Balancing Competitive Advantage and Safety with AI Innovation. And I'm going to introduce our fantastic moderator to the stage and his panel, so please give a big hand to Philip Dawson, Head of AI Policy at R. Miller AI, and his panelists.
Oh, good morning, and yes, somebody has a fan club. I don't think it was me, so. But really great to be here for the World Summit AI Americas, based in Montreal, of course, and to see the conference grow every year. Really excited for our panel today on a very important topic that seems to become more critical to businesses all the time, and other stakeholders too. And that is, what is the relationship between safety and risk management and innovation, and how can they be complementary? Before we get into our panel discussion, just like to share a little bit about where I'm coming from, because given the work that R. Miller AI does, we have an opportunity to work with organizations that are large enterprises and their AI accelerators, with clients that are working on deploying AI products safely, with standards bodies and assessment organizations. So we really do get to see all sides of this topic, working with vendors, working with enterprises, and I really think with the 4 panelists we have today, we're able to cover this topic really, really well. So just to start us off, I'd love to open with a question from Marc. Given your work, Marc, with some of Salesforce's top clients on deploying AI solutions, I'd like to understand what you're seeing in terms of the problems related to deployments or issues customers are tackling from a risk standpoint, from a safety standpoint. What are some of the most common issues that your clients are facing?
So everywhere I go, and I've been going over the last 14 months, 15 months since we made this AI pivot across the globe, everywhere I go, I basically get 3 questions. The first one is, where do we start? The second one is, how do we make sure that what we do, is done for a long term, that we have a view of the future? And then the third one is, can we really trust AI? So those are the 3 questions I keep having every time. And on the where do we start, there is actually an irony, because 80%, last year was a year of discovery, experimentation, but now 80% of the CEOs say, I want it now. And then only 30% of the CIOs, CTOs, CAIOs say, yeah, I can deliver it at that pace. Because it's not just, implementation. As we talked earlier, I talked earlier in my presentation, it's an AI transformation. You can't just implement it and assume, you're gonna, if you start implementing it, you're gonna change the candles into light bulbs. But that's really the tip of the iceberg. It's a very tiny part of the opportunity. And so what I see where customers are either really engaging full on or not is when we are able to have a conversation around a true transformation with a strategy and a roadmap for that transformation and how to build capabilities, and really thinking about, yes, the short term, what you can implement for productivity, but also how you are going to augment people and transform work. And that implies, real skillings. And then the long-term capabilities you're going to need to reimagine who you are as a business and how you can really leverage AI to totally transform the way you serve your customers and potentially more. And so this idea of having a strategy and thinking about capabilities in a holistic way is really the thing that for me differs or differentiates companies that get it and companies that are still struggling with it. And it also means that you need it to start from the top. You really need to have a CEO usually, or somebody from the top that drives it and that has that willing to build the capabilities for the long term. And maybe I'll add one more thing. It's not just about technology. One of the things that, for me, I've always defined capabilities as knowledge and skills. We're going to need to learn and reskill workforce. Systems and tools. We're going to need to embed AI in the flow of work. But it's also structure and culture. We're going to need to rethink our structures and also build a culture that lets people understand that AI is here to stay. I've seen companies that organize, get together in the canteen to show how they're using AI for some exploration or data, and building that culture of, it's happening, it's going to change work significantly, but we're here to do it together.
Thank you, Marc. So really a lot of fundamental questions at the outset, from leadership to long-term planning, organizational structure, culture, for organizations especially that are just getting started. Elena, I'd love to turn the conversation to you just now, and maybe first I think I'd like to ask you about some of the top risks, let's say, that you're facing at Ericsson, where you're the head of the AI Accelerator. So Marc really did a great job of outlining some of the big issues that companies are facing as they're embarking on an AI transformation journey. What are some of the risks that that a company might face? What are they concerned about? Is it AI failures? Is it training? Is it bias? Just leave that open for you. And then how are you addressing this?
Plenty of risks. I think there are so many risks in this field.
Yeah.
I think transitioning from the previous question, I think it's very interesting how, let me, compare to other fields of science. So I'm a computer scientist, and when we start working with AI, then everyone kind of feels like this is another type of computer science. But it's a different story, because when it comes to AI and collaborations with AI, there are so many risks. I think risks of data privacy. Is the sound okay? The risk of data privacy is one of the biggest ones. So I will give you an example. So Ericsson has been on AI journey for 15 years. Ericsson is a big company, is a big infrastructure vendor. We work with our suppliers, we work with our customers. Everyone is building AI. We are kind of somewhere in the middle of this value chain, and we have a lot of knowledge in the company, and we have a lot of data in the company. We've been working with it 15 years, but other companies, very cool companies, I'm not mentioning the names, other companies have been working for 30 plus years, building, super cool, AI algorithms. And I remember myself sitting in a very cool office with another cool supplier saying, they would tell us, just give us all your data and your network topology and kind of all your knowledge, and we will kind of help you with AI. And this is where we felt like, maybe not. Because the beautiful thing about AI and data is that if you kind of tap into all the data sources, you can get out all the intellectual property. Because the intellectual property in the end for enterprises is the most important thing. You don't want to have it leaked out and someone recreates the whole business and rebuilds it, right? And here we are kind of today working with our customers in the same way. And kind of we're saying the same thing. Just give us all your data. We'll do it for you. And obviously, and it's not, so the risk is twofold. We all care about data privacy, and we all know that data privacy is so extremely important. We all care about the speed of adoption of AI as well. And they are kind of, two different forces. But when it comes to the data privacy, I think it's one of the biggest ones. Then we all know about the bias, about algorithms misbehaving. But I think this one, the balance between the openness and the willingness to share the data versus the speed of adoption, that's a very big kind of discussion topic.
Very interesting, and I think about some of the work we're doing at Armilla where testing models, the availability of representative data sets is critical to this type of work as well. So maybe just moving into the next theme, we've been seeing a lot more focus in media recently. There's an article by the New York Times on AI model measurements and evaluation. The Stanford AI Index report came out this year, highlighted this as a key theme, area of importance. Other reports by different standards bodies and agencies in the United States in particular. I'd love to talk to ask Chantal and Alyssa, given the work that you're doing on standards and assessments, how do you see your work intersecting with this very critical gap that we're seeing in risk management and AI safety around assessments and model testing? It is something that we're seeing enterprises become more focused on, yes, for the models they're building, but also for the third-party AI solutions that they've been buying for years and in the last 18 months have started to make inventories of and wrap their heads around that type of risk they've taken on. Chantal.
Thank you, Philip. I believe that it is essential that we continue to build the right standards and the right conformity assessment, because ultimately we want to make sure that the tools that are being developed or that are used are fit for purpose, right? You don't want to have effet pervers, right? You don't want to have something that you didn't intend to do or to happen. And really, when you look at what the standardization system has provided in Canada, but around the world, it's trust. It's trusting that what's happening around you here with the electricity, with the structure, with the technology, is not going to kill you, or something happen that you don't intend it to. So that's really what we are working on, and we continue to work on, is building that trust. And how do we build that trust? We agree on terminology. We agree on what is responsible AI. We define the requirements that will define what is responsible AI. And then we want to make sure that I'm not just self-declaring that I'm building a tool that is responsible. I actually have somebody that will come and assess or audit or test to ensure that what I'm saying is actually happening. So I'm following the standards, I'm following the requirements, and I can demonstrate that it's happening. And I think that's something that more and more, I think, will continue to be raised by consumers. A lot of us have experienced AI in a strange way, using tools that are not necessarily giving us what we expect. So I think that there's going to continue to be a desire for trust and confidence in those tools and that technology, and that's what we're for. We're here for that. The standardization system, again, has been providing quality and safety for 100 years in Canada, and we want to continue to do that. So that's why we're involved. And we actually have been the ones promoting the development of standards at the international level. Last December, ISO and IEC issued a management system standard for AI, and it's for anybody to use. You want to develop AI. There are requirements that speak about what is necessary and what are the metrics you can use, so you can check yourself against those metrics and ensure that what you're doing is, again, fit for purpose. And we've tested this new tool, this new standard, with responsible AI, with the Alberta Treasure Branch, and we are ensuring that this standard can evolve, can continue to deliver its value by, again, conformity assessment. And that's something that we will continue to be involved. So we're interested in hearing, as we are using those new tools, what are those needs, where are the gaps, and ensuring that as we progress, we continue to develop the right standards, and we ask people to use them and apply them. They will help.
And one of the standards that Chantal alluded to actually can provide some of the helpful guideposts for what Marc was beginning to discuss at the beginning of the panel around what types of management systems from the top down should an organization implement to make sure they're starting out on their journey the right way. And just on the topic of standards, some people here are experts in AI, some people might even be experts in AI standards, but we're not even talking about regulations yet. We're just talking about voluntary rules that the industry and other organizations can use just to make sure that people are comparing apples to apples in terms of AI performance or risk, or what corporate governance should look like, and so that it makes it easier even for a company like Armilla that not everybody knows yet one day. But when we come to work with a big company like Ericsson and we mention that we're working with a standard they recognize, then there's a level of trust that is well, maybe I won't say guaranteed, but there's a little bit more trust there.
Yeah, I just want to add, thank you, Philippe, but what's also important is by using an international standard, you get recognition, right?
Of course.
So if we use it and other countries are using it, then you get mutual recognition, which is very important in the context of building that trust that we want, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Alyssa.
Yeah, so big standards nerd over here as well. But so at the Responsible AI Institute, we have the privilege of having members, and we get to see the boots on the ground, like application of people looking at implementing a responsible AI practice and building it. And quite frankly, the problem we solve is like, what do we do? What do we do today? What do we do tomorrow? And in its incredibly noisy landscape, and they're really trying to figure out amongst the regulations, the standards, the best practices, the white paper, what applies to them, and what do they do today, and what can they maybe wait on? There's this huge friction between wanting to be a first mover, wanting to be a leader. I don't want to do as more than my competitor, but I certainly don't want to do less. And so we see ourselves as, frankly, wayfinders and being able to help people understand, what does a standard even mean for your organization? So, talking to somebody in IT who now has to implement ISO 42001, and they're like, I've never heard of that before. And so a lot of the things that we think about are, what are the elements of trust or responsible AI, and how does the cross-functional team come together, and how do we balance incentives? Because this, I think, is one of the biggest conversations around how we do this is, you have a team that is told, get to value with your AI investment. We want the ROI from that implementation. And then you have a compliance team, potentially, saying, well, I don't have the assurance, or the guardrails aren't in place that I feel comfortable letting that go to deployment. And so one of the big questions I often get asked is, like, what's the ROI on responsible AI? Which is hard to quantify, the ROI of mitigated risk. But ultimately, what I've been seeing across our member organizations is those that have governance in place, those that have started to look at standards, those that understand and have a grasp of the almost enacted and emerging regulation actually do have a competitive advantage in terms of actually being able to get value from their AI investments, as opposed to being this responsible AI barnacle at the end or cost center. And so I want to leave that there because it's a really important piece of the conversation, is like, what is the incentive to actually invest in this? And at this point, it's not proactive, it's extremely reactive to be setting up a practice. And it isn't, and it is that. It's an ongoing practice, and it is not a linear journey with a beginning and end point.
Marc, you probably have an interesting perspective on this too, just seeing so many companies that you're working with, and just in terms of the ROI on responsible AI or risk management. Well, I guess that's maybe I'll frame the question that way. Are you seeing it more as a question of the ROI of responsible AI, or is it kind of the imperatives of risk management and making sure that that whatever AI project is undertaken is done safely and is going to meet project KPIs? How are you seeing that characterized across some of the clients you're working with?
Yeah, the way I always think about responsible AI is what's the ROI of doing the right thing? And at the end of the day, if you don't ask yourself that question, then we're all in trouble. Yeah. And there will always be, in the journey of any technology advancement, there will always be bad actors. And hopefully none of them are in this room, but there will be. So if we don't collectively commit to doing the right thing, it's going to be bad, and it's going to be bad. We have this. I talked earlier this morning about this whole concept of human at the helm. It's going to get worse when we start to let the AI do things autonomously. And that's why the whole responsible AI journey requires to build that muscle of how humans do the right thing, even if we're not always going to control the actions that the AI, and that's going to be a journey. And so a lot of the conversations we're having, and again, a lot of people, we have this thing that we call the Einstein trust layer, that goes through multiple steps, all the way from secure data retrieval to PI data masking to zero retention to toxicity detection to audit trail. We can explain it 10 times, and people still are going to be nervous because this is new. It's totally new, and the risk, and that's that something might go wrong scares people, and that's a good thing. So really building that culture of trust, not as a short term, but really as a journey. To me, responsible AI is definitely something you embark on and you never stop.
Absolutely. Elena, you wanted to join in.
I'd like to add also, I totally agree with you, Marc. I think responsible AI is, apart from being, a hygiene factor, it's also as a part of quality assurance frameworks in any company. In software development, we all know that more than 50%, probably 80% goes to quality assurance. And AI practices are not very different, because the quality assurance is extremely important, and that would include the responsible AI, adherence to all the principles of responsible AI, and also monitoring the quality of your product in the end. And it's very costly. When we talk about ROI, if the system stops, be it a telecom system that goes down, or it's a factory that goes down because of some kind of misbehavior in software, a failure in software, be it AI or other software, that's extremely costly. So that frameworks are, very important.
Go ahead.
I think one of the things too, though, I agree with you, and Salesforce has been a fantastic leader in this in a way, but I have a slightly more cynical bent of, first of all, people don't know what the right thing is, do the right thing. People are like, this is messy, and I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. And so that's where standards and things and best practices from sharing in organizations can help. But I will say that the well of altruism can be shallow when it is do the right thing, because my experience has been there are definitely leaders in the space who look at it like that, Salesforce and others being one of them, but there also needs to be very clear guidance from the top that, like, okay, we're doing this for the right thing, but it's connected to our organizational goals, our code of conduct, our principles. This isn't an option. It's embedded in our culture, but it's also, to your point, mitigating risk. It's allowing us to be more competitive. I have found that if we rely on do the right thing, there's an option to abdicate because there's, there may or may not be the clarity on what that means.
Well, I mean, do the right thing is not, something you do waking up in the morning. It's a skill, it's a responsibility of a whole department. We've always been guided at Salesforce by our values, and our number one value is trust. We founded in 2016 our ethics and human use teams, and I hired our first chief AI ethics and human use officer. And one thing I always say, I'm dying to invite actually people to join the meetings where we have our ethics team and our product teams in the same room. Because you have one that's arguing, what's possible, and the other one that's arguing what's responsible. And the one who wins is the ethics guy, because they will not let it progress if they don't believe that it's responsible.
And that's why it's so important that these concepts of ethics are actually codified.
Yeah. Totally.
Right? And that's what we're trying to do through standards. And I think that the other piece to that is I admire the people that do the right thing, but I know that there are bad actors. So ideally, as a citizen, I want some regulation around this, right?
Which we all do.
Right? So I think that if you look at what is needed to get that trust, you certainly need regulation. And some countries and some economies are in advance compared to us. We're getting there, but slowly. And you need those codes, right? You need those documents that detail what good or responsible looks like. And certainly, standards are a very good tool for that, right? So if you match that regulation with the standards and then with the assurance process, and we are adapting. We know that even in standards development or in certification or assessments, AI will have an impact. This is a very powerful combination to get to trusting those tools, right? So I believe in people do the right thing, but I want, as a citizen, I want more assurance than that.
Incentives or even requirements, I think we were starting to talk about. Elena.
I'd like to say one thing. I'm not sure I understand the concept of AI ethics officer. I just want to say it because I don't think AI ethics is any different from any other ethics.
I misspelled. I meant to say it's not just AI. It's ethics in general. So sorry, I realized when I was saying it that okay.
Very good.
Thanks for noticing it. Thank you for making me.
All the AI ethicists in the room have just picked up their ears, but go ahead.
But it's also...
I'm done.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
A super interesting lesson from Salesforce then is that the ethics team has stature. They have actually a seat at the table. In other examples, they become like the no police or the we have to go to ethics on this. And so it's really about who has stature in the organization and how that governance is set up, because typically it's like, we'll run it by ethics and we'll kind of, maybe railroad them and then we'll get it into production. But the culture and the organization has to be that the guardrails in place actually are incentivized and have stature as it relates to the decision making and the product roadmap. So, that's where some of my cynicism can come in.
Right.
But there's a really good lesson to be learned from how Salesforce has kind of structured their organization.
Terrific. Well, look, one of the points of this panel was to help folks understand through your experiences how responsible AI or AI safety or risk management, there's a whole different kind of nomenclature to describe some of these principles, how this actually helps accelerate innovation and accelerate adoption and the benefits of AI in a responsible way. So with maybe the last segment for the panel before we go to Q&A, in whichever order you like, what would you like to share as just the kind of your pitch for how you've seen risk management practices, responsible AI practices actually accelerate innovation or adoption within your organization or with clients. Marc.
One of the most simple tools that we use and we use with our clients is what we call a maturity model. And looking at the maturity of adoption, and the same way that, you know, as babies, we started crawling, then walking, then running, and then potentially sprinting, but understanding what it takes to go from step to step and not running before you know how to walk. And so going through those steps of, the basics of data foundation, of predictive AI, of simple use cases that, you know, people can embark on and learn and master before they go, you know, too fast, too far. And again, having that vision, as I said at the beginning, of the long term is fundamental, but understanding the maturity, you know, steps that you're going to take, that you can take, so that you don't take risks, neither, you know, from an AI trust standpoint, but also for your business, for your workforce, that you do it, again, in a way that is, you know, controlled. To me, that's that. And it's a simple tool. To be fair, the first time I saw it, I said, yeah, it's obvious, but it's actually probably sometimes the simplest tools are the most, you know, useful, impactful, because it forces people to reflect on how ready they really are.
Alyssa, I mean, I think immediately your work at Responsible AI Institute comes to mind. Your organization started out as spearheading really the first AI certification effort, which is still ongoing and very successful. But you've also added other tools along the way to help organizations move faster in their AI journey. Love to hear more about your view on this.
For sure. Thanks, Phil. So, you know, everything that we're trying to do is make it like very practical and tangible. So like, how do I do this? This is the how, and we're learning from our members and giving that guidance. And so launching a hub and doing all these things to create a community of learning and creating assets that help organizations. But if, you know, to pitch responsible AI, which is my job all day, I often think about like the carrots and the sticks. Regulation is coming, it's inevitable, so if you're not proactively or reactively preparing at this point, there's technical debt. You're building your houses with asbestos, so there's a very clear incentive to be thinking about it that way. But there's also been like some really fascinating research about brands and trust, and the fact that like trust is, you know, built in drops and lost in buckets, and so more and more we're seeing the competitive advantage and the brand association with organizations that are publishing their principles, creating grid alliances, getting certifications, getting ISO standards as being part of not just a leader, but people going through that maturity model and making sure they're implementing it. So, you know, the pitch for, and the other big thing is around procurement. With some of the guidance around in the EO and the OMB guidance in the US, with the EU AI Act, all of those requirements are coming down. So if you want to work with big companies and with the government, you got to get ready. So there's a lot of reasons, and it truly is the right thing to do. I mean, I don't want to diminish that with my cynicism, but I think there's just putting those practical, tangible reasons to be proactive are really important.
Procurement is a really interesting example of just the incentive that companies have in selling to large organizations or government, which is often one of the largest buyers of technology,
yes.
To meet these requirements. So that's, you know, that's a powerful incentive to adopt responsible AI and hopefully move faster with different clients. Chantal, Elena, over to whichever of you.
Well, I just want to build on what Alyssa said, but certainly when it comes to standards, and in particular the one that was just issued on the AI management system, I invite you all. I read it. I could read it. I could implement it. It's based on the principles of quality management, by the way, was led internationally by Canada 50 years ago, but it's a management system. It looks at all the important parts of that journey that you need to consider if you're going to use or develop, and get certified. It's coming. EU for sure is going to make a connection between those standards, and they will mandate certification, and most likely another level of trust, accredited certification, because you want to check the checkers. That's what accreditation is about. So I guess you have to get in the loop. I think that it's an advantage for the brand, and I think as a tool, as a management tool, it's a great tool. So I invite you to use it, and if you want to hear about more a pilot we've done, we have another session this afternoon where we'll talk about that pilot we did with this standard.
Thanks, Chantal.
And I can start with some kind of maybe usual suspects, what you always hear in this type of contexts: federated learning, exposure, synthetic data, safe API, innovation, but this is not new to you. You all know that it's important. I would rather probably tell you a little bit of a personal story, since I'm an AI person, have been working for Ericsson for 20 years, and developing AI in a telecom industry where each G takes 10 years to develop. But you know the pace of AI development. So there is a very fast runner in a big system that's like really, much slower. And when we are talking about standards, and Ericsson, we love standards. I mean, this is the kind of prerequisite for openness and successful collaboration, innovation. When it comes to AI standards, still I think it's very important. There will be a lot of de facto standards. And if I kind of have another metaphor, because we're comparing AI systems with a human, and this is nothing strange because they're inspired by human brain and evolution and everything. Human brain is very, adjustable, and you can change. You don't build something that it's like we will run it for 10 years, and after 10 years we'll do something else. No, you can change your mind during one day, and you can retrain your brain a little bit in one day, especially when you're young. So, maybe we should have this metaphor of technology that we are building, that we need to prepare for quick change, and on the other hand, all the standards and regulations that we are building, we need to be prepared to build them so we can change them very quickly.
Yep.
Agile.
Yep.
So that these systems, the technology is almost, in security, you have someone building a virus and someone builds an antivirus. We need to be able to adjust and quickly reflect on anything new that's being developed.
Can I just say one more thing? I have the privilege of talking from people across the ecosystem, and the amount of people working on this very thoughtfully, very intentionally, and the amount of collaboration that is happening in the space is incredibly emboldening. And so, all of these kind of the yin and the yang of the progress and of the safety is so inspiring. So I'm at least very optimistic about those things.
Terrific. Well, thanks everyone. Before we go to Q&A, I might add one of my own perspectives, if I may. We're working on something at Armilla that hopefully will help enterprises move fast as well, which is to become insured against AI risk. So that is something that we don't talk about very much, but the insurance industry is really preparing itself to provide that coverage for AI risk, and that's something that's also very exciting. So, questions from the audience. I'm not sure if there's somebody moving around with a microphone or not. I haven't identified them, but I've seen a hand over here, and I know this person.
Oh,
Jutta.
yes. Thanks, Philip. Great, okay. And thank you for this wonderful panel. We've talked a lot about the AI ethics industry, or the ethics industry. And I think one thing that AI ethics is missing is the impact on outliers and small minorities by statistical reasoning. And if we don't address that, then I think we're moving in the direction of a form of digital eugenics, a homogenization of the decisions about people. Unless we change, not just protect against specific accuracy, consistency, or reliability issues, if we don't address the the direction that we're powering towards with statistical reasoning, then we're just discriminating more accurately, more consistently, and more efficiently. Is there any response that you can think of, especially in terms of companies that are leading in this and pushing towards progress, to how to, in fact, address those many outliers and many marginalized minorities?
So, anybody welcome to respond to the points that were made. Not all at once.
I'm happy to. So I think this is, as much as we talk about the business case, like at the core of what we do, this is really what we're trying to work on. I know a lot of the work with some of the safety institutes at national levels are focusing on this. But when we think about how we're helping our member organizations implement AI systems, we are often talking to people that are experts in this space because it is very context specific. Every system has a slightly different kind of look or approach depending on how it's applied. And so for us, this is why we have working groups and a community to be able to address those things and not get kind of lost in generative AI land where we're all very excited, and not to just look at, pay too much attention to the existential risk that tends to take out a lot of the conversation, but really specifically looking deep down at the use case level, at the data level, what is actually happening with potential marginalized groups, and making sure that we're not extending systemic harm with systems that are being deployed. It's not simple. It also has to do with data access and access to kind of certain types of data, which I think there's a larger kind of global conversation about of protected attributes and things like that. But I mean, it's definitely needs to be the core focus.
So if Elena, Marc, and I think Chantal wants to join as well, then I think that might close out our session.
Thank you for the question, because I was mentioning this AI ethics officer, and then I kind of stopped with my comment, but now we are kind of reiterating the importance. I think it's important to look at AI ethics like as a kind of outside in and inside out. Outside in, and like historically when you work with technology, and I was like, comfortably for some time saying, well, just define ethics and we will comply with it. That's a very comfortable position. That's kind of like working with technology is simple compared to defining the ethics. That's a very, very difficult problem, right? Well, it's not simple. I'm kidding, but I've been working with technology all my life. But that's why I was commenting. It's about ethics. It's about digitizing or digitalizing the human ethics and all the unspoken rules and all the ethical rules that we never speak about. But then the algorithms, they will find their way to and find them. And then we're like, oh shit, you're not allowed, right? So it's about ethical behavior when it comes to any type of technology. And then when it comes to inside out for the companies to find ways to adhere to these principles.
So again, thank you for the question. And indeed, our whole ethics team doesn't think at all only about data privacy and security, but a lot also around equality, diversity, accessibility, inclusion. And we actually apply, for instance, red teaming, not just for data privacy and security, but for diversity, for inclusion, forcing the model to see, if it can fail for accessibility or inclusion. And that's really important because it's really how much we push for all those dimensions in the way we build that trust layer. And so thanks for the question. I think it is what I think we all mean by responsible and ethics, but it's better mentioning it than assuming everybody knows it.
Chantal, you want to close this out?
Yeah, just want to thank you for the question. But for me, certainly, as you are developing tools, I think the concept of design for all has to be better integrated. And there's a beautiful standard on this. But I think that concept of design for all. The other thing that worries me and is of great concern to me is the data set. And why I say this is that we have done research at Standards Council, and we know that even when developing standards, we are biased. We don't consider, for example, gender. We know that standards protect men more than protect women. So we have to be careful in the data set we use. And sadly, a lot of the data that's been gathered, for design in science and technology is based on the European male. So that excludes 95% of the population in the world. So that, I think, we really have to have deeper conversations and understanding of what we build that foundation of AI on. And that, for me, that's a concern, certainly. So thank you for raising it.
Well, thanks very much for your participation, and thanks to the panelists. It was a great discussion, and look forward to chatting more afterwards.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.